And we are live. Welcome back to Totally Unscripted. So it's been a while, but we are back, and we're back with a bang. And I've blown all the budget on our little intro smash there. So we've got no money left. So we're just going to make it up as we go along. So I'm delighted to be joined again for this new season of Totally Unscripted by Steve Webster. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Martin.
And we've boosted our team. We've got Charles Maxon from Google has come along. Hi, Charles.
Hello, everyone.
And Charles, some of our audience might not know who you are. So do you want to say a quick couple of words about yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for including me and having me and being part of the community. And thanks to both Martin and Steve for driving this community. Myself, I'm Charles Maxon. I'm a developer advocate for Google, and I happen to focus on G Suite, which has been a passion of mine for many, many years. I love to automate things and assemble things and make things work faster, and I hate doing things redundant manually. So I became a fan before I actually became a developer advocate, and I've learned tons from the community and Google developer experts like yourselves, both Steve and Martin, and I'm just really super excited to be here.
Well, Charles has also bought his, as I mentioned, his contact book. So we're doing the Totally Unscripted slightly differently this season. So we've got 6 episodes almost weekly. So we're having a little bit of a break towards the end of November. All the shows are at the same time. So if you're tuning in live now, this is the time that will be. We've got a slight difference. We've got a slight variation there. We are on Friday the 14th, so usually it'll be a Thursday. So remember the 4th of December. It's going to be a really special show. So I really encourage you to tune in for that one. As well as live, you can watch these shows recording straight away. But just to give you a quick run through of what we've got in store. So tonight or today or this morning, depending on your time zone, we're starting with Meet the New Developer Experts for Workspace and AppScript. So Steve recently, even though he's been a long-time contributor to the Google community, finally got his GDE badge. So well done, Steve. And we've got in the wings, we've got a number of wonderful people of the community that you've probably seen in the past. So we're just going to speak to them, learn about what it is that drove them into Google AppScript and Workspace, and what it's like, the benefits of being a developer expert, and how you might want to go down that route yourself if you want to. And then next week, we continue with getting started with Workspace add-ons. So Charles, are we in a position to say who we've got for that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you've probably heard if you've been following along, there's been some new news around what you can build, how you can build add-ons, and how you can actually publish them in Workspace Marketplace, which is a fun tongue twister, Workspace Marketplace. So we're gonna have the PM for a Workspace Marketplace join us, Mike Mutella, and he's gonna tell us, what's new there, what's happening, give us some exciting news about the direction of it. And then for my team, Steve Basil is gonna join us, and Steve is actually gonna show us how you build a new G Suite add-on for editors, and he's going to take us through that. He's done a lot of work around that, and he's just released a great Medium blog post kind of talking about that, but now he's going to show you live next week and take you through it. And very enlightening, very exciting stuff.
That's, I think, a really great show, and I think perfect timing as well, given that's quite a recent development. So the following Thursday, we're getting hooked on AppSheet. So many of you probably know AppSheet is one of Google's newest acquisitions. So we've got a couple of people coming on and talking about AppSheet, and I'm sure Steve as well will be chipping into that one, given you're already an expert on that, Steve. As I mentioned, we're 4th of December, a really good show. Don't miss it. And then December 10th, we're actually looking at new workflow solutions with Google Tables and AppScript. So we've got Ben Collins, who many of you will know is coming along for that show. And we've also, I think, Charles, we can say we've got the PM for Tables as well.
We have the PM and we may have the tech lead as well too. So we're doing really good on getting folks interested. And I think you're noticing the theme of everything on the calendar is about what's new. So I think it's awesome that we've all this kind of, rolling thunder of new stuff coming almost every week, because there's a lot of stuff coming out in the space, which obviously is very exciting.
Completely agree. And so user channels, and something that you can do if you've got, given that you've got a sense of what's coming up, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, knowing that the topics we're covering, you can contact us at TU@Unscripted.info, or you can reach out to us on Twitter at @Unscripted.info, and we'll do our best to feed those questions. We'll keep reminding you of that as shows come up. We'll give you a hint of some of the things that you should be asking for. But without further ado, let's get our experts out here on the stage. So I'm just going to seamlessly switch this on. So if you just bear with us a second, let's get GDEs. So here we go. Alice Keeler. We have Sura. We have and Pablo. So welcome, experts.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to be here tonight.
So you are the newest batch of Google developer experts for Workspace. So Charles, do you want to talk a bit about how the developer experts program works, and then from your perspective as a Googler, how that fits in with what you're doing?
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. First of all, I want to welcome everybody. And as you mentioned, Martin, most folks are new to the expert program, but most of these folks are probably pretty well known from the community. And as I mentioned earlier, these are the folks that I learned from. And ironically, I'm the only Googler on here. I'm also not the only expert on here. And I still learn from you guys all the time, which is amazing. And so the way the expert program works is pretty straightforward. We like to make sure that we, first of all, recognize people that are in the community talking about Google technologies, helping other developers be successful in their journey. And so when you think about what Google developer experts do, these are people, whether it's their career, like for example, maybe it's part of their business and part of their job, or folks that are from the EDU sector, right? They may be teachers like Pablo, right? Who this is not their full-time job, but they're so passionate and so knowledgeable about technology, is they openly share with the community their experiences, whether they do presentations or demos or create code libraries or do courseware, all these different type of solutions that they bring to the community, often for free, often part of their business. But either way, we simply want to recognize and reward them for their outstanding representation of the Google developer technologies. And so we have all different categories. There's about 700, maybe a little more now, developer experts worldwide. We've got over 30 specifically in the Workspace space. That sounds funny to say that. But they're from all around the world. And again, they have all different walks of lives, which is very interesting. So whether you're Android or Flutter or Assistant, and some folks who are even multiple categories, they really go out and they're simply super enthusiastic to help others learn more about the technologies. And that's why I love the program. For us personally, like I said, my job as a developer advocate is to get people interested in the technologies. But honestly, folks they learn from more, they get excited from more, are people that do it like yourself. So whether you're a professional, whether you're a hobbyist, from a user standpoint, whether you're a beginner or whether you're seasoned, experts are great people to learn from and draw some really good background from.
Yeah, so you can, if you Google developer experts, you'll find a website where you can find more information about the program. You can, in fact, I can bring up, we've got, this is the current map of, you can filter the directory and you can actually find who your local expert might be. So it could be useful if you're organizing local events and you're looking for people to speak. Obviously, under current situations, getting someone local might be less of an issue, but maybe you're just looking for a presenter. So there's 33 of us in total now. So and we've just got a small selection of. Would it be rude for me to say my favorites? Would that be rude? So let's actually get some of your backstories, just for people that aren't familiar with who we've got here. So I'll maybe just quickly go around the room and just ask you to, just say who you are, what was kind of your introduction into Google Apps Script, and where you're currently taking it right now. So I may as well just go around the grid. So I'm going to start with you, Andrew. So we got Andrew Roberts here. So what's your little story with AppScript?
Right then. So I started off doing system programming back in the 90s, a long, long time ago. And then over the years, I've slowly moved more into web development stuff. And what happened was I was doing some voluntary work at a meditation center. And they'd started to use a little bit of Google Drive and Google Apps, but they'd had lots of different maintenance people in it, all doing different kind of things. And they're actually using a Google form. And one of the problems they were having was setting up automatic scheduled tasks. So I thought, well, there must be some way to link up the Google Calendar and this Google form and this Google spreadsheet I've got. So I dug around, this is back in 2013, and came across Google Apps Script. And from that, I mean, as I said, I'm a freelance web developer. So ever since then, I've just been working mainly with AppScript and doing business automation for a wide variety of different businesses around the world, and enjoying how AppScript just keeps growing and growing, and all the new features that are coming out every 5 minutes, which is great. Exciting times.
It's always interesting to hear the backstories of people with AppScript. It's like, we had a problem, we found a solution. We're going to keep using this solution. It's really good. So Andrew's based in Wales, so we're going to hop across to Suraj. So you're based in India. So, but you work for, is this correct, Dash in Berlin?
Yeah. Currently, I am on Berlin time, technically. But yeah, that's the company I work for right now. Yeah.
That's a hell of a commute.
Yeah, so I was supposed to travel this year, but of course, like given the circumstances, like that's not gonna happen anytime soon. But yeah, happy to be able to do things remotely for sure.
So what's your kind of backstory? How did you get into AppScript and kind of wider workspace stuff?
Well, it's actually, I mean, it's not as dramatic, but I think mine was mostly like I actually stumbled upon a existing blog post about a webhook, and I just got instantly hooked on the fact that you could magically send data from one application to Google Sheets. Like, of course, like I'm an operations person, and Google Sheets was like a huge part of my life. So being able to like just automatically send data from place A to place B just caught my attention. I'm not even a developer, so it was kind of fun, right, to understand, okay, what an HTTP request is and how APIs technically are supposed to work, what are the responses that are supposed to come out of these kind of requests. So, well, I would say that's when I started sort of understanding what AppScript can do and its managed abilities to connect to all the different applications that we already use today, right? So that's basically how I got started.
Oh, thanks for that. And next, perhaps don't need much introduction. Alice Keeler, we're jumping back, well, towards across the UK over to the States. So Alice Keeler, you just seem to be everywhere though, but you're also in the AppScript world.
I feel like I'm everywhere, and then I just moved, so now I'm in Kansas, which is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. But I'm a math teacher, and what I love about AppScript and what we got into is I'm not a coder, and I didn't know any code. In fact, I had a friend at Google, and I was chatting with them, and they were very slow to respond. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "I'm coding." And I'm like, "What are you coding in?" It says AppScript, JavaScript. I'm like, "I'm going to learn that." And I spent about a week doing some sort of online tutorial for JavaScript. And I had an hour before I was going to get on a plane. My plane was going to take off in an hour. I thought, I'm going to Google search what this app script thing is. Like, I don't even know what it is. And I'm like, wait, insert sheet? I know what that does. And within an hour, literally knowing zero app script, I coded was probably one of my best things I've ever coded, is the ability to take my roster of students and then create a sheet within the same spreadsheet with their name, all my students' names on an individual tab. And that to that day is something I use all the time. It's just saves me a ton of time.
And now you have magic powers. We all hail Alice and her magic. That's how you get around the world so quickly. It's AppScript. But we've got another. We're coming back across from the States and landing in Spain. So we have Pablo. So Pablo is another person with an EDU background. So Pablo, what's your AppScript story?
Well, my AppScript story is, I think that it is rather short because, well, first and foremost, I am a teacher at Alice. I work as the head of studies, but I have an ICT formal training as well. Behind that, I love technology, but I am a teacher. In the end, I am a teacher, and although I am involved in the management processes in my school, that's my main occupation, my main task. And well, at my school, we deployed G Suite, Google Workspace, some years ago, and it was back in late 2017, I think, that we started an innovative educational project that was related with Classroom, and we tried to assess how Classroom could improve the learning management system that we were using so far, that was Moodle, of course. And that seemed the right point to start delving deeper in the G Suite ecosystem. Until that moment, I knew about AppScript, but I skipped it completely because I was thinking other things. But I started to feel intrigued about its potential and began to learn and start creating small scripts and publishing in my blog those small scripts to automate little tasks, send an email, create calendar events, almost always involving spreadsheets and later Data Studio. That's my second or first maybe soft spot besides AppScript. So that's the story. So I think that I'm rather new to AppScript. I have been coding things for maybe 3 years, and we need to spend more years learning about this and explaining my colleagues how to use AppScript in their context. That's the reason why I'm usually my blog is in Spanish. My articles are in Spanish, my blog posts, because I try to advocate for the use of AppScript in Spain, mostly. So that's the story.
Well, the sense I get here, Charles, and well, I guess, Steve, do you want to do your story?
Yes, technically, no.
Sure, I would love to do my story. So again, I'm Steve Webster. I'm in the States in Florida. It's nice weather today, if anyone's curious. Rub it in, right? So yeah, my story was, maybe we could call this the third generation, right? We're in Google Workspace, then it was G Suite, then it was Google Apps, right? So back in the Google Apps days, I thought it was so cool how you can have one file like a doc and just collaborate. And then I stumbled upon AppScript and it was new. So I was drooling with automation and integration stuff. So I did stuff like that. And then Google took notice and I was awarded like top contributor, which is kind of phased out for AppScript. But I did some guest blogs and I got more excited. Google invited me a couple places, got more excited. So now my niche is helping other businesses like B2B stuff. And it's just wonderful how we can think outside the box to say anything seems to be possible now with all these integrations and solving problems. So that's kind of like my background.
So couple of thoughts. I hear a bunch of you saying the same thing. There's two things I heard a lot. One is most of you said, I stumbled across it. I found it. I discovered it. Almost like it was accidental. So hold that thought for a second. The other one is, for whatever reason, we see a lot of folks in the EDU space gravitate towards this. Is there something natural about teachers stumbling across things they need to accomplish? And here they are. So how is it that people stumble across it, and how has it become so popular in EDU?
That's what I kind of.
Would you want to?
I think the main reason for Unscripted being so popular right now, I think that it's immediacy. You just fire a new tab in your browser, type script.new, and you are there, ready to build wonderful things. You don't need anything else. Of course, you can deploy a local environment for more complex or bigger projects, but in fact, that's not really needed to do really nice things, to publish an add-on or to automate any process. So that's the reason why it's so popular. You can code anything, anywhere, even when you are not in front of your computer, I mean. So that's great for me. That's one of the main reasons that push me to use it more and more.
Alice, I know you actually run a number of workshops helping other people getting started with Unscripted. And I'd imagine there's a lot of educators that come along to those. Do you have a particular insight in what draws people into Unscripted?
I mean, teachers are just, I mean, that's just really my expertise. I don't think I could talk about anyone except teachers, really. Here's the thing about being a teacher that's true for every single teacher. You have at least 30 reasons to code. Everything you do, you have to do 30 to 150 times. As a high school math teacher, you know, I have 150 students, so everything I do, I have to do it, I have to do it again, I have to do it again. And so I'll code some things like, I just have this real simple, the students fill out a Google form, it's a check-in form. How do you respond back to students who check in and share something that's hard with a Google form and tedious, even if they were to send me an email? So since it goes in a spreadsheet, I just quickly type a response to everyone, and I coded where I have a drop-down menu and just shoots back an email to everybody all at once, and it allows me to have those personal connections. So then, you know, I show this to a teacher, and they are like, "That's cool, but," I'm like, no, I won't be your personal coder. How about you, you know, let's learn this together. And I've got some online courses and things that they can do and get started, and it's not as overwhelming as some other things that it's doable for a teacher.
Yeah, that accessibility issue, that's kind of similar with working with businesses as well. Because I think one of the things that attracts clients to it is the fact that it is only ever a couple of clicks away. So once you've developed all this code, it's there for them, so they can go in and they can tweak to their heart's content, and they can kind of go away and learn as much as they like. And it's not stuck away on some obscure server between loads of firewalls and things. So yeah, the accessibility is a big thing, I think, for Unscripted.
So the other thing you mentioned, I think everyone has a similar story where they said they were, or not everyone, but most folks, I was new to coding, or I didn't code. And first of all, you know, when I learned Unscripted, my background was Microsoft in the past. But when I got into the Google world and I started to learn this, the first place I looked was obviously the documentation. But the second place I looked where I found samples and libraries and videos and tutorials and how-tos and were the communities, and were, you know, obviously going to the Google groups, or looking at the time we had a G+ site, which was populated by most of the folks in this program. And so how do you give new folks that confidence to not necessarily go, well, I'm not a coder. You guys all made the hurdle. You know there was some obstacles, and you've helped other people knock those down. But what's the advice you collectively give to help people become experts themselves?
Well,
That's a great question.
Anybody?
Well, the number of resources that are out there, I mean, they're building all the time, aren't they? I mean, there was Bruce McPherson's video tutorials he was doing. There's been a few books out there, and all the stuff that Ben Collins has been doing, and that seems to be very popular. So a number of video tutorials that are coming up. And like you say, I mean, all the communities are all fairly active as well. So I mean, that's something you can definitely point to. Any kind of way that you can especially encourage the collaboration. I mean, there's tons of stuff on Stack Overflow. We've got a Google group. Rest in peace, Google Plus.
Now called Google Current.
I think that I agree with Andrew that on that the fact that the community is very strong. The force is very strong on AppScript. The community is very strong with AppScript, and it's very easy to get into it. At least from my point of view, from my experience, you can get a lot of help from very knowledgeable people around.
Yeah.
And you only need a little bit of patience to work things out when they don't work as you expect. That's programming. You spend 90% of the time thinking why it's not working, and 10% of the time seeing that it works, more or less, or typing or coding like that. So for me, that's the secret: patience and to know who to ask, who you have to ask, who knows more than you, who can lend you a hand to get you out of the place where you are when nothing works, apparently, in your code.
And it's nice the fact that we got the Google group as well, where it's a lot more friendly than Stack Overflow, because Stack Overflow can always be a bit intimidating. I remember going down to about -2 the first time I tried to kind of post stuff up there because I got my question wrong.
Rather intimidating, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's a question for you. So, why don't you go, Alice?
I was just going to say, I always just say that the fist pumps are bigger when you have to work for it. So it's fun. Because
So a question I think for experts is, and this might interest for people who want to become experts in the future. So obviously you've put your head above the parapet. You're now listed as an expert in this area. How do you deal with all the questions that you'll personally get in your inboxes asking to solve problems?
Oh yeah, that happens. I think that happens a lot. I don't think I don't think anybody knows this, but I think the first week I got into the GDE program, I reached out to Martin. The first thing I did was like, how do you? I mean, besides the coding questions, the other kind of questions that I received was like, can you evaluate my profile and tell me if I'm a GDE, right? Like, how do you try and answer some of those kind of questions as well? But otherwise, the coding part is definitely one of those challenges. I typically reserve them for the weekend. I try and help and get involved as soon as possible, but otherwise, it's mostly over the weekend itself. Yeah.
And I think the fact that we're GDEs, one of the reasons we're probably GDEs is because we probably do spend a lot of time answering questions on things like Stack Overflow groups. So yeah, in a way, you're kind of used to it. So
yeah.
So I was going to ask a question on top of that, very similar. And I know, like you said, some of you are professionals, some of you are a little more hobbyists, right? You do it because it's something that you're attracted to. And, Martin, for example, has been doing as much for this community as anybody, and yet it's not his day job. In fact, it's obviously, nighttime over there, and he's still doing it. What drives you guys and what excites you guys? Alice, I've seen where you've actually sat with beginners so amazingly patiently and helped them go through. I don't know how you actually have that patience. I know you're a teacher, that's where you get it from. But I would mic drop and walk out. And Andrew, you have this vast number of libraries you support. And Saurabh, you actually tweet something every day that shows me something I need to know what's going on. I mean, frankly, you guys help me do my job better than I can do it. What drives you guys? What keeps you guys going to do that?
Oh, pretty loaded question. I actually, me personally, I actually troll mostly for problem statements. Like, where can we find the right problems? Because I would say like that's where the secret sauce is in a lot of different places. Like, everybody can figure out a solution. That part is sort of simple, but where is the right problem, right? Like, so I try and sort of see whoever is tagging as Google Apps Script or perhaps Apps Script Pulse, and just try and see if we can answer some of these people right. So it's me trolling for problem statements. That's my go-to of what's happening. Yeah.
For me, I think it's the fact that you can create stuff so quickly. Again, we were talking about the accessibility, and someone also mentioned the APIs. The fact that you can just link into this infinite universe of web services and link it all together and just kind of, because that's what I find a lot of the jobs that I do seem to be more kind of glue. I have a lot of clients that have worked with various web services and they're spending hours and hours kind of cutting and pasting and moving stuff around. But the fact that you can kind of got this app script that kind of glues it all together, pulls it all into a Google Workspace environment as well. I mean, that's all pretty exciting.
Is it something, for one of the talks I regularly give is about Google Apps Script as a playground. So do you guys find Apps Script fun? Answer yes.
Yeah.
Quite fun.
What are the bits that you don't find fun then?
Problem solving is fun. I'm a math teacher. Notoriously, I tell people I teach math. They want to stop talking to me. And we teach math in a way that it's not fun. But math is fun when you take it as an approach of problem solving, puzzles. You're not supposed to get it right the first time. The productive struggle is what really feels good. And so when we say app script is fun, it's fun because I forgot to put a semicolon. It took me 45 minutes to find it. Darn it. And I'm like, ew, that feels good.
Yeah.
When you finally get something out of an API, having struggled with the OAuth for several days.
Yeah, I was just about to say, but Andrew, just I think you beat me to the punch by a second. But mostly it doesn't make me feel dumb. I'm not a coder, so for me to not be able to feeling like I'm like dumb person who doesn't know how to do it, I think it's a lot more easier because we don't have to handle these codes, we don't have to handle authentication, we don't have to handle servers, instances, cost. I think me personally, again, it's free of cost. I hope it stays that way forever. So that's like some of the biggest motivations as to why I jump onto AppScript.
Well, we have a little saying. We always say AppScript is super easy to get started. It's super hard to get finished. And you probably heard this. A lot of folks are new to it, or they try it and they get excited. They see things work and they sometimes get frustrated. Again, first thing I would always do or recommend somebody do is go look for help. I always say I'm not a coder, I'm a copy and paster. What's your advice when people knock on that AppScript door and it doesn't answer? Like, how do you get over that hump? And there's a lot of different ways, but when you get frustrated, anybody on the call, when you find that there's something that you really get stuck on, besides white wine or red wine, how do you actually get through the problem?
I think it's very rare that because there's so much stuff on Stack Overflow and in the Google, so yes, for kind of technical problems, I think it's very rare to actually come up against something that somebody else hasn't come across before. I mean, there's such a large community of them there, of AppScript developers, that someone's usually kind of come across that problem beforehand.
I have to say one thing about the Stack Overflow and that copy-paste thing that we all do. I also do copy-paste. Small snippets of code that you hardly understand but seem to do some magic on your program. But I think that in the end, that's not absolutely right or not good for your learning curve. I mean, because if you all the time try to copy what others are doing, you in the end are producing things that work, but you are not understanding the reason why it works. So in the end, if you try to develop a career in programming, I think that maybe it's better, you had better go slower and develop smaller things, but without the need to copy and paste snippets of code from other people that are that are smarter than you. I mean, so maybe if you don't copy code from other programmers, your progress will be slower at first, but maybe in the end it will be more rewarding, and you will get a better grasp of how AppScript or any technology or any coding environment works.
Yeah, I agree to a large extent of that. It actually helps you kind of sharpen your own saw. But one of the things I always tell people is, we're not code developers, we're solution developers. We're trying to build a solution. So the faster you can solve that problem, the faster you can get on to the next one. But I do agree with you. When you start to understand the patterns, you understand how to build it without the crutches, you can kind of move quickly. But I do think the beauty of having a popular language like JavaScript as the base of this, where you've got people from all walks of life that you can build on those experiences. Because I often use non-AppScript sites and communities to actually solve my problems with AppScript because there's more out there. And so it's being able to leverage those commonalities and leverage what's kind of been done before you is how you build on top of it. But I agree, there's certain things to learn. For example, when when we moved from Rhino to V8, I had to go back and learn things or learn things that were modern, so to speak, but weren't really available. So I had to go back and get accustomed to. And so you're right, I had to go reteach myself things because it wasn't naturally working the same way. So I do agree, it's good to kind of put down those fundamentals. But on the flip side, I also think it's great. There's code I write and just pull my modules in, or I mentioned like Andrew, for example, has got a lot of libraries he shares. I don't know how they all work, and sometimes I don't care how they work. I'm a solution developer.
Depends on your deadline as well, doesn't it?
Exactly.
You have to make it work.
There's a couple of questions I just want to actually interject. I saw a couple of people asking.
Well, I was just going to hit them with you, Charles.
Yeah, I can't answer in type. I can only answer verbally. So Fernando and Mozart both asked a question. You're alluding to something that is actually something we're going to be talking about shortly. And Martin mentioned a special episode coming up soon. I will give you the answer. Please tune into that. You will know a lot more about your questions you're asking then. Specifically for folks listening in, what are some of the new enhancements that you can expect in AppScript? What's going to happen in 2021? There are some amazing things that frankly change AppScript forever for me, and I hope they will for you too as well.
Well, for those that have been closely following AppScript, they would have seen your presentation with the new IDE, Charles. So
you're right. I did mention
that's one of the things in terms of just learning AppScript. I think the new IDE, when you were showing it off, it's got inline help, so people can actually see what is the bits of pieces of information that they need to put back in to get to do stuff. So as well, it's going to be another source for people to just start scripting better. But I think my experience with AppScript is there are so many different approaches to how you get into AppScript, and I don't think there's life is a rich and varied animal, and I think there's lots of ways of approaching this. It's just finding the one that works for you. But I do recommend, if you can, hook into the communities that are available, so you'll have local groups. I know, Pablo, you're part of the GED, so the Google Education groups in Spain. So is there much sharing of AppScript within that particular community?
We have a local, a rather strong local community, but although we have some spaces for AppScript and a developer area, that's something that definitely has to be pushed in the near future. That's my goal, or my intention at this moment. So there is I think that someone published a graph that depicted the popularity of AppScript in the last years, and we saw a big spike last year. Maybe Sohrab, it was you. I'm not sure.
It was not. I retweeted Pablo Felipe's. I think the person who was in BigQuery Google right now. Now I think he moved into Snowflake. I retweeted that person's tweet. But yeah, I remember that. Sure.
I think that 2 years ago, I knew very few people in Spain, teachers and so, that were using AppScript, and now there are many more. I'm sure of that. But it has to be pushed forward, even more stronger.
When I think about how people stumble upon AppScript, Charles, I was thinking about, I think there's a handful of people say, hey, how do I do this with Google Sheets? And they'll say, oh, you have to use the Explorer button, or you can use tools, and all of a sudden they get introduced to, or you could just copy this code. What code? So they kind of get sucked into it that way.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think we kind of hoped with the macro recorder, that people would be, introduced or stumble across and find something that kind of writes the code for them. And, as advertised, you don't have to ever look at the code, know about the code, care about the code. But if you're curious, It's pretty easy to get in there and start to learn from it. I'll actually even still use the recorder sometimes to write things quickly that I want to just go copy the code and reuse it, or make sure I got it right, or some archaic formatting thing I don't want to look up. I can just use the recorder to figure it out. But it's a great way of actually introducing people into something and kind of having them kind of stumble across it by necessity. I always find that most people get into business productivity development, which is what I consider AppScript. It's out of necessity. It's out of a need. Their day job is X, and they need to solve problems Y and Z, and AppScript helps them do it faster. So no matter how you get here, you get here, which brings me to really super point. I've always been a super huge fan of the GDE program, even before I had met you guys and were talking to you. I want to let folks know who are actually watching that it's not a closed community. You can actually become a member of our program. The simple way to do that is be a contributor, whether you're doing courses, whether you're blogging, whether you're doing speaking presentations, whether you're active in the Google groups, or all the above. The way it works is real simple. One of the fine folks on the call, or somebody in the program, or somebody at Google will recognize your contributions, recognize your expertise, nominate you. You apply a couple quick interviews, and you can join. So keep up the good work and carry the banner, and consider joining us.
So talking about connecting people, so we actually got a question for Pablo. So we've got to work out how we're going to do this one. So Pablo, someone's interested in finding out your blog URL. So they lead the GAS community in Spanish for Latin America. So that's Jorg Farino. Sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong. So we're making connections here today, people. So I'm going to just dig out Pablo's blog and share that in the YouTube chat. Steve and Charles, start filling.
Well, I've already spoken enough. Steve.
Sure. One of the ways is think local when you want to start reaching out to the community. Right now, I'm actually in a co-working space in a building. I'm running a small office. So I thought, hey, in this little community, it's local. Let me host a Google Workspace Q&A session. And I could have it virtual and in person, safety and all that stuff with the pandemic. And it was a successful event. I even invited another Googler in remotely. So it made it a fun event. So you could start small and just start with your local circle, and then you can get creative and expand outside of that. So that's something to think about. I feel like there's a producer who says, stretch.
Well, I'll just make a point about you saying about when people get into AppScript. And I was talking to a client today, and they've got a small business, and they'd kind of reached the capacity of what they were able to achieve, but they knew that there was lots of stuff that they were doing which could be automated. So it was either get more people in, kind of start working even harder, or start working smarter. And they knew there was this thing called AppScript. So they were reaching out to try and automate and kind of make themselves a lot more efficient.
One of the things, if in case there are any people out there feeling a little bit of an imposter syndrome, it's all right. I think the thing that I did to get over it was go to Stack Overflow, and instead of asking questions, I started answering them. Though I wasn't sure that the answers are right or not, I think it's still a good thing. Like, answer it. If people kick you off, it's all right. It's still okay to point out whatever answers you can think of, right? And eventually you get better. And I think that's one of the cooler ways that I found to just deal with things. I
can never get in there quick enough. It's like there's already 6 answers on stuff by the time I look at it. It's probably from you.
I'm amazed by that. I am shocked that there's almost no unanswered questions in the community. I mean, that just blows me away. Every time I look for something, I look for help, it's already been answered, and the answer is effective. And I'm just like, wow, it's crazy how many people out there doing it. And it's like I said, lot of people think, AppScript, I stumbled across this thing and nobody else is doing it. But, we literally have millions of people running AppScript every day. We have millions of people writing it. So there's a lot of people out there doing this, so you're not alone. And it's not, like I said, I always wonder if I'm reinventing the wheel. And the answer is, most times somebody's already written it or already has, satisfied the problem. There's very few things that I'm breaking ground on that's never been tried before. Even if they're things like, I'm trying to do things I shouldn't be trying to do or won't work, there's somebody who says, well, that's not possible. So, try this way instead. And I'm always blown away, but, every road seems traveled already.
And there's also those kind of set of issues you need to keep in mind as well. It's kind of the biggies, like the whole thing about the multiple accounts and things like that. That some of the people seem to stumble across quite a few times.
You're bringing back old memories now of getting so far with something, then realizing you can't do that.
Then you find it on the issue. Once you've learned all the major ones, then you should be okay.
I think it was my first. We used to have the GUI builder, and it's like I'd worked really hard on this project, and then realized I couldn't publish it to a certain subset of group people or whatever, and it's like, damn. But fortunately, a lot of those dead ends are, given AppScript is an ever-evolving platform, it seems a lot of those dead ends are no longer dead ends, and also I'll have to dig out another link to the issue tracker, which is a place where the community can, say, we need this feature.
Plus one.
You could do a lot of gaming of that system as well. People star in your feature requests. Or speak to a friendly GDE who regularly talks to a Google, the part of the Google team. So we do get a chance to speak to Charles and other people in the AppScript team. So that's another way if you're hitting problems.
Yeah, I absolutely want to second that. I mean, we get a lot of feedback from not just the issue tracker, but also what we hear from people. I mean, it used to be we would go to events and we'd hear from people directly. But as you mentioned now, whether it's online, whether it's sessions like this, whether it's in the chat window, or you can even, DM us on Twitter or whatever. We love the feedback. And, the question answered earlier is, how do you put up with the mail you get? There is that. And folks that have been around AppScript for a while may remember a name, Eric Kalita. Eric would sit there and answer questions all night long on his own time of, people DM him on Twitter, and people still thinks he's on the AppScript team, even though we changed roles after a decade. But we love the feedback because we actually hear what's broken or what's missing or what's not right with the product, and it helps us. And second, that what you mentioned with the GDEs a second ago, the GDEs are the people that do this the most and do it for real. I mean, we're kind of, we do it inside Google, a little bit ivory tower. You guys do it for real. You find the real problems, and that feedback is priceless. And so we love to hear from the public. We love to hear from you guys. And again, that contract, that exchange of information is really essential.
Well, the time has flown. I think on that note, I think we're going to say thank you to our experts and taking time out to just share part of your story. We'll post links to where you can find them. So if you discovered this on Pulse, which is a website we'll talk about, Steve and Charles and myself in a bit, you'll find links to their Google Developer Expert profile. So this is another benefit perk of being a developer expert is you get a profile page. So you can find the various links where you can connect with these people and politely ask questions, maybe. But experts, so Andrew, Alice, Pablo, so thank you very much for joining us. There was one more expert who wanted to join us today, but he's based in Malaysia, Adam Morris. Given the time zone, it's 4 a.m. for him. So we're going to play out this section with just a quick clip from Adam about his experience and journey as a good developer expert. And then after that clip, myself, Charles, and Steve will be back just to talk about some other bits of news and pieces. So hopefully stay tuned, and thank you, experts, for joining us for this part of the show.
Goodbye.
Hey guys, I'm Adam. I'm sorry I couldn't join
sorry
you
I couldn't
live,
join
but
you
I thought
live,
I would
but I thought I would record.
your event
Your
unfortunately
event
is at 4
unfortunately
a.m.
is
my
at 4
time,
a.m. my time,
but that's all right. I
but
mean,
that's all right.
we're all remote these days anyway. And anyway, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Classroom Tech Tools on Twitter, and I publish a lot of my code. So knowing me remotely is fine too. So I'll just let you know how I got involved with app scripts. And sort of some of the work that I've done with it. So basically, I got involved with it because I work at a school. Like, I'm a teacher, I have an educational background, and it was as a founding member of the school, we needed like systems to work with each other. And so Google's really popular with teachers and education, and my bosses who love Google. And so AppScripts was just a really great way to kind of justify me building stuff with it. And it was really easy. I mean, it was a low bar of entry. I already had a background in computer science, so I made the transition pretty quickly. But I also knew that someone else who joined me later could also pick it up because it's really quite like I said, low bar of entry. And so it has a unique stack. There's lots going on there. And so you if you're a beginner and you're just trying to figure out, oh, I want to make a Google Doc do something fun, you can use AppScripts pretty quickly, learn how to do stuff with that. But if you're also like a kind of I don't know, geek or Uber programmer, you also can do really cool stuff from that angle too, because it's just JavaScript, so if you know AppScripts, you know JavaScript, and JavaScript's one of the most sought out and programming environments out there. And on top of that, there's also a layer of working with Google stuff in an easy way, with Google Docs and spreadsheets and data and things like that. So what I do with it in particular is actually kind of the latter. Like, I'm kind of I just like to go deep with it, and I've been working lately on using Node. Node is like a local development environment. Using Node to write the AppScripts code on a local environment, and being able to test it with unit tests and some other things like that. And also, I've been incorporating a front-end technology called Svelte, which I'm really excited about. And so that's some of the things that I've been working on lately. And I really enjoy working with the community. It's really fun to kind of compare notes with each other, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. And so, like I said, find me on Classroom Tech Tools on Twitter. The classroom doesn't have an A in it, the two O's, because it was already taken. But anyway, I'm pretty prolific on there, and like I said, I write libraries and some stuff like that, and most of the stuff that I do is open source. So look for me there. It was great. Thank you very much. See ya.
So I had some money left over for a news sting. So we're going to just continue for a little bit. So we, as part of Totally Unscripted, we just want to cover some of the latest bits and pieces as well. So a space that actually a number of the experts and the wider community are contributing to is AppScript Pulse. So this is a curated resource where we're just picking up anything and everything that's related to the Google AppScript community and just resharing that. So I'll just quickly put up where you can, if you've not come across Pulse before, you can subscribe to the site there. But there's a couple of recent bits and pieces I thought it'd be nice just for us to highlight and talk about. So the first one here is we mentioned at the top of the show, we have got Ben Collins coming along. So you can already get started with some of the stuff that Ben's been doing with AppScript and the new Google Tables beta. This one is for those of you in the US only at this point, but I know Google Tables is creating a lot of interest. Charles, I think you've got some insight to tables and just how it's having an impact. some reason.
Sorry, I had my mic muted. Rookie mistake. If you've heard of Tables, or if you haven't actually heard of Tables, Tables is a project by our Area 120, which is really, it's kind of a pre-alpha project that we're using as an experiment to see if people are interested in the product space. And it is a super neat, easy way to do table-driven, database-driven type projects with things like actions as well too, when a spreadsheet simply isn't enough. And so the whole notion behind it is, are people finding good use cases? What are they doing with it? Is it kind of worthy of becoming part of a member of the Workspace family? So it isn't yet. It's not supported yet. It's not an official product yet. But it's really trending that a lot of people are excited about it. And so as Martin mentioned, in an upcoming show sometime next month, we're actually going to bring the PM and hopefully the tech lead of the product to see more about what they're doing with it. And then Ben's going to tie it together about how he actually is using AppScript to actually fuel tables and to do things with tables, kind of combining the best of both worlds. So I'm super bullish about the product, and I hope it does become part of the family. And we'd love to get your feedback. And if you're excited about it too, we can tell the folks internally here to support it and make it a thing.
That's great. So, Steve, of interest, have you had a chance to start delving into tables, or is the day job taking up all your bandwidth at this point?
Kind of reminds me of shopping for a car. I've seen it. I'm smiling. I want to know more, but I haven't kicked the tires yet.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
So something else that came out recently. So we got contacted by Luke Craig, who's a teacher in the UK. So we're back into the EDU space. And this is one of these lovely Google Apps Script examples where someone is just solving a problem. So, or not Luke Craig, Craig Luke is the actual person. So you can find them on Twitter as well at teachluke_UK. So lovely example of he's worked through a solution here where you just have a spreadsheet with your students and their parents' email addresses and a set of times, and you click a button, it just creates all the calendar events with the meets all set up, ready for you to go. So it's one of these examples of solutions that, whilst it's EDU focused, I can see applications in so many other ways that you could do this. Setting up interviews. I've just finished a day of awards interviews, and our portal admin had set up numerous meetings, and she could have just used a spreadsheet. But I think a lovely example. So
I really loved Alice's comment. Every teacher has 30 reasons to do something. Or you think about that redundant task. Each student needs personal attention, or you're grading paper, whatever it is. That redundancy is such a common use case in the UDU profession. And it's the same for other things. It's funny, you mentioned that. I've written a similar tool to actually connect with the GDEs, where I actually iterate through spreadsheets and do things like send things out or do processes. So it's great to see how people are sharing these examples and how it fills the gap. Again, the mother of invention is necessity.
That's the one. This is another nice example of those cases where you're just looking for that little thing to fix your life, automate something, just make it a little easier. So this, I'm sure many of you have come across Amit's work, so on digital inspiration, and he's on Labno on Twitter. So he's a wonderful resource. Terrible to call him a resource. He's a wonderful giver of information and resources. So this is a nice little snippet that he shared recently. If you just want to monitor Google Drive and just see when files are deleted in your drive. It was funny. I actually had a very similar example that we use at where I work, which I created in not too much time at all, where we needed just to make sure people were dropping in their backup files, and so it's kind of the inverse of this. So another wonderful example, and Amit shared all the code on that tutorial, so you can delve into that one. So all these are on Pulse workspace.appscript.info. So if you want to go there, you can find all these examples and more. And the last one I think we're going to highlight in this show is just with the Google Workspace add-ons. So we got Stephen coming on from Google in next week's show, who's going to talk more about Workspace add-ons. But he's got a Medium post where he's just talking about how the new Workspace add-ons and how you can use that with the editors. So this is it's a really nice example as well, where Stephen goes through with the new Workspace add-ons. You can actually develop for multiple platforms. So you could develop for docs, sheets, slides, and have a single add-on that works across all these platforms, across devices as well. So again, you can go to pulse.appscript.info and you can delve into that one. And tune in next week so you can hear from Stephen. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you have any questions, if you started working in Google Workspace add-ons and you've got some questions in terms of, you've hit a block point, or there's something you're trying to do, or anything like that. So just a reminder of the email address, tu@appscript.info, if you want to email in a question for Stephen, or appscript.info on Twitter. And as Charles mentioned, we've also got the PM from
Mike, yep.
From Workspace.
Yeah, I'd plus one that. I mean, take a look at this blog post. Steve's been working really closely on both the regular G Suite add-ons and now the new extensions that are specific to the editors. And his blog that you mentioned here is really good to take a look at if you're thinking about either writing a new editor add-on or even migrating some of your old ones from the old HTML service into the new Workspace add-on model. And check it out before next week and come bring your questions. Steve is brilliant at explaining things very quickly. He makes everything sound easy. So come check this out.
And I think that's it in terms of examples. So just a reminder of the schedule. So we are back next week. So and we'll have Stephen then. So thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks again to our GDEs for sharing their expertise, and thanks for everyone who tuned in and also contributed in the chat as well. So hopefully we picked up most of your questions in the YouTube chat. We'll keep an eye on the video as well, just to respond to bits and pieces. And if you've got any thoughts or suggestions about the show, please get in touch. So I will see Charles, any final thoughts or words before we head off?
No, just Martin. Steve, thanks for having me and inviting me to be part of the show. And again, thanks to the GDEs and to everybody who tuned in. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited about the momentum we have. So just thanks so much.
Thanks, Charles. Steve, any final thoughts?
Yes, I'm just excited that we have relaunched Totally Unscripted. I just love how we just don't spend a week. Okay, what we're gonna say? No, we're unscripted, so it's totally doing it. So thanks.
And thanks, people, for bearing with my fumbling with switches and knobs and dials. So come for the content, not the media production. Until next time, happy scripting.